factoring the common factor out of the expression. What does that mean my first step needs to be? Yeah, exactly. We got to find the greatest common factor. So what's my greatest common factor between those three terms? You're right. It is 8. So I take 8 out of the expression. I started with three terms, so I need to end up with 3 terms. 8 times what would give me 64x to the 4th? 8 to the 4th power, right? 8 times what would give me 24x squared?
8 times 3.
3x squared. 8 times what would give me 16?
2.
Good. If you just gave me this, that is incorrect. You can't forget your variables, okay? How about this one? What's my greatest common factor? 9a. 9a. So I take 9a out, right? I start with 3 terms. I need to end up with 3 terms. What's my first term going to be? Perfect. A to the 5th, right? I have 1a out here. I need to end up with 6 of them, so I have 5 there. 9a times what would give me 63a squared? 7a. And 9a times what gives me 72a? Number 3, what's my greatest common factor? 5x. Take 5x out. What am I left with? 2x to the 5th. 5x times what gives me 25x to the 4th? Perfect. 5x times what gives me negative 30x? Negative 6, exactly. Right? If you can't remember how to find the greatest common factor on your calculator, I've got a little poster right there that talks about it. I also have an example just like these right up there that I'm going to keep up for tomorrow during your test. You may also use this paper on your test. Look at 4. It says factor completely. That just means I need to come up with the 2 binomials that will multiply together to give me this. That means I have 4 slots to fill. What is definitely going to be my first times first? A times A. How do I figure out what I put here and here? What do I need to look at? 20. What are my factors of 20?
20.
Which of those pairs is going to get me to 9? How do I get to 9 with 4 and 5? Positive 4, positive 5, right? So that means my factors are A plus 4, A plus 5. That's it. Number 5. What do you notice about these 3 numbers? What do you notice about those 3 numbers? They have a greatest common factor of 3. That means I can factor that out first. So if I factor 3 out of 6x squared, what would I be left with? 2x squared. If I factor 3 out of 3x, what am I left with? If I factor 3 out of 108, what am I left with? There you go. 36. Yes. Oops, minus 36, right? Minus 36. Okay, now I just have to factor what's inside here. So what's different about this that I have inside the parentheses compared to this? Like, what's different about this type? Yeah, there is a negative number. What else? It is going to be two binomials. What's different about this one? Keisha, you talked about this earlier. What's different about this one than this one? There's that 2 in front of the squared, right? So I'm not just going to have x and x, right? I have to have a number in front of that. Okay, but I still have 4 little slots to fill. Okay, and I'm definitely going to have x and x as part of my first times first, but this is where we use our t-chart to come up with the rest. So what does my first times first have to equal? Not 6, but 2. What are my factors of 2? 1 and 2, that's it, right? So that's definitely going to be my first times first. 1 times 2 is going to give me 2. And then what does my last times last need to equal? 36. 36. What are my factors of 36?
136.
2 times 18. 3 and 3 times 12. 4 times 6 times 6. 4 times not 8. Yes, 9. Which of those is going to give me, well, first of all, what is my middle number here? 1. Which one of those is going to get me to 1? Well, actually, none of them, right? None of them, because I got to combine it with my 1 and 2. So which one of these do you want to try? Let's say that. Which one do you want to try? You want to try 6 and 6? What's 1 times 6? 2 times 6? Is 6 and 12 going to give me to 1? No. So that's not going to work. And even if I flipped them, it's not going to change anything. 1 times 36. So then I'd have to do 1 times 36 and 2 times 1. 1 times 36 is 36. 2 and 1 is 2. So that's not going to get me there. That doesn't work. That's not going to work. You want to try 2 and 18? 2 and 18. 1 and 2 is 2. 2 and 18 is 36. That's not going to get me to 1. 4 and 9. Which way should I do it? 4 and 9 or 9 and 4? 9 and 4. 1 times 9 is? And 2 times 4 is? Can I get to 1 with 9 and 8? How? Positive 9 minus 8, right? So that means, do I just put x plus 9, x minus 8? No, I have to use my numbers from the t-chart. If I want a positive 9, that means I have to make this a positive 9. If I want a negative 8, that means I got to make this a negative 4, right? And remember, the 1 and the 2 are my first times first, 1 and 2. And then my 1 and the negative 4 are going to go together. My 2 and the positive 9 go together. So it's 1x minus 4, 2x plus 9. And those are my factors, that's all. However, which on your test, you won't have to factor out a greatest common factor first, but in the event that you do have to do that, you will have to keep that 3 out in front. 3 stays out in front. How about number 6? Number 6, I need to factor completely. That means I need to come up with my 2 binomials that multiply together to give me this. What is my first times first going to be? N times n. That's it. And then I need to look at my 54 and look at the factors of 54. What are my factors of 54? 6 times 9. And what do you notice about 6 times 9? 6 and 9. What am I going to, huh? 2 and 27, you're right. But what number am I trying to get to? 15, right? 6 and 9 get me to 15, don't they? Positive 6, positive 9, right? So I'm going to just add 6, add 9. I think there was also, what is it? 3 times 18? 16? No, 18. 18, right? 3 times 18. Yeah, 3 times 18 is also 54, which, right, I could get to 15, 18 minus 3, but then I'd end up with a positive 18 times negative 3, and that would have given me a negative 54. I want a positive 54, so I have to use the 6 and the 9. Okay. Number 7, still factoring, right? Still coming up with our 2 binomials that multiply together to get me this. But what do you notice about these 3 numbers? They are all positive. What else do you notice? What is it? Not 16, not 6, not 2. There it is. If you can always check for it. On your test, I didn't give you any that have a greatest common factor first, so you don't have to worry about it too much. But yes, you should always kind of check for that. So if I factor out of 4, what am I left with? 4 times what gives me 20v squared? 5v squared. 4 times what gives me 36v? 12. 9. 9 what? 9v. 4 times what gives me 16? Good. Okay. So now we have this part to factor. Okay. And what's going to definitely be a part of my first times first? V times V. And I got to come up with my other numbers now, so I'll use my T-chart to do my work. So what does my first times first need to equal? First times first. 5. What are my factors of 5? 5 and 1, that's it. So I'm definitely going to use 5 and 1. That gives me 5. What does my last times last need to equal? Huh? 4. What are my factors of 4? And? So that's definitely going to give me 4, but then remember I got to make sure my outers and my inners get me to 9, right? So what one do you want to try? Do you want to try 4 and 1 or 2 and 2?
4 and 2.
4 and 1? You want to do 4 and 1 or 1 and 4? Well, 4 and 1, that's going to give me 5 times 4 is 20. 1 times 1 is 1. Does that get me to 9?
2 and 2.
Well, what if we flip? We have 1 and 4. 1 and 4. What's 5 times 1? 1 times 4 is? Can I use 5 and 4 to get to 9?
Yes.
Just add them together, right? So that means I need to have a positive 1 and a positive 4. My 5 and 1 are my first and first. And then I group my 5 and 4 together, my 1 and 1 together. So that's 5v plus 4, 1v plus 1. And then since we took out that greatest common factor in the beginning, we got to make sure we keep that there at the end. All right. So now, what's different about numbers 7 and 8? It equals something, right? So that means I need to solve it. I'm not just coming up with the factors now. I have to figure out what value of n would make this equation true. But it does still involve factoring. That's my first step. I got to come up with the two factors that would multiply together to give me this. What's my first times first going to be? N times n. And then what do I need to look at to determine my other numbers?
What?
What are my factors of 8? Which one's going to get me to 7? How? Positive 8 minus 1. Good. So n plus 8, n minus 1. You might just be able to tell me the answer right from there, but let's kind of talk about it. Remember, if I have two things multiplied together that give me 0, one of those things has to be 0. So we figure this out by setting n plus 8 equal to 0, as well as n minus 1 equals 0. So if n plus 8 equals 0, what does n equal? Negative 8. And if n minus 1 equals 0, what does n equal? Positive 1. That's my answer. Okay. Now let's look at 8. What's different about 8 than 7? It equals negative 8 instead of 0. I have to make one side equal 0. So how am I going to make negative 8 0? Add 8. Add 8. Right? So now this is 0 on this side. What's negative 43 plus 8? No. Negative 35. Right? And everything else stays the same. 7n squared minus 44n minus 35 equals 0. Once again, to solve something like this, I need to put it into factored form. I need to come up with the two factors that multiply together to give me this. So what's definitely a part of my first times first? N times n, right? And now I got to look at my first number. I look at that 7. And I look at my last number. I look at 35. What are my factors of 7? 1 and 7. 1 and 7. That's it. So that means that has to be my first times first, right? 1 times 7 gives me 7. That's the only thing that does. What about 35? What are my factors of 35? 35. And 5 times 7. Which one do you want to try to get us to 44? 5 and 7. 5 and 7 definitely give me 35. And then we look at our outers and our inners. So what's 1 times 5 give me? And 7 times 7? 49. Can I use 5 and 49 to get to 44?
Yes.
How do I get to negative 44 with 5 and 49?
Negative 49.
Negative 49, positive 5. So that means in my equation, my 5 is going to be positive and my 7 is going to be negative. I use this 1 and 7. Those are my first times first. And then my 1 gets paired with that negative 7, and my 7 gets paired with the positive 5. So 1n minus 7, 7n plus 5. And those equal, multiplied together, those equal 0. I need to come up with a number that will work in place of n in both of those situations, right? If this times this equals 0, that means that n minus 7 equals 0, and 7n plus 5 equals 0. This blue part is easy. If n minus 7 is 0, what is n? Yeah, n is 7. This one's a little more complicated. This is a two-step equation. What do I need to do to solve for n? How do I get the n all by itself? Subtract 5 from both sides. So 7n equals -5. And then how do I get the n by itself? Divide by 7, divide by 7. So what does n equal?
N equals 5.
-5/7. Yes.